Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Trilingua. And in today's video, we're going to read. Do you like reading? I hope you like it. And the book that was chosen was a really famous book that was written by the French writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and it's called The Little Prince. Okay, I hope you like it, and let's read it as long as we can, and to use it like a way to practice our English, especially the pronunciation and the listening. First of all, before we get started with the first chapter, chapter 1, I have a dedication to read, because this book was dedicated to Leon Worth, the author's friend, one of his best friends. Okay, and after that, we have the chapter 1 to be read. The dedication. To Leon Worth. I apologize to the children for dedicating this book to a grown-up. I have a good excuse. This grown-up is the best friend I have in the world. I have another good excuse. This grown-up can understand everything, even children's books. I have a third good excuse. This grown-up lives in France, where he's hungry and cold. He needs to be comforted. If all these excuses are not enough, I will then dedicate this book to the child who became that grown-up. All grown-ups were first children, but few of them remember it. So I corrected my dedication to Leon Worth when he was a little boy. Chapter 1. When I was 6 years old, I once saw a magnificent picture in a book on the virgin forest called Stories of Life. It was a boa constrictor that had swallowed a wild beast. Here's a copy of the drawing. It was written in the book, boa constrictors swallow their whole prey without chewing. Then they cannot move, and they sleep during the 6 months of their digestion. I then thought a lot about the adventures of the jungle and, in turn, succeeded with a colored pencil in drawing my very first drawing. It was like this. I showed my masterpiece to the grown-ups and asked them if my drawing frightened them. They said, "Why you'd a hat to be scary?" My drawing was not of a hat. It was a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. I then drew the inside of the boa constrictor so that the grown-ups could understand. They always required more explanation. My second drawing was like this. The grown-ups advised me to leave aside the drawings of boa constrictors from the outside or the inside, and to interest myself instead in geography, history, calculation, and grammar. Thus, at the age of 6, I abandoned a magnificent career as a painter. I had been discouraged by the failure of my first drawing and my second drawing. Grown-ups never understand anything on their own, and it is tiring for children to always have to give them explanations. Chapter 2. So I lived alone with no one to talk to until I broke out in the Sahara Desert 6 years ago. Something had broken in my engine. And since I had neither a mechanic nor a passenger with me, I prepared to try by myself to make a difficult reprieve. It was a matter of life and death. I had hardly any water to drink for a week. The first night I fell asleep on the sand 1,000 miles from any inhabited land. I was much more isolated than a castaway on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Then imagine my surprise at dawn when a funny little voice woke me up. She said, "Please, draw me a sheep." "Hey, draw me a sheep." I jumped on my feet as if I had been struck by lightning. I rubbed my eyes well. I watched it and saw a very extraordinary little man who looked at me gravely. This is the best portrait I later managed to make of him. But my drawing, of course, is much less ravishing than the model. It's not my fault. I had been discouraged in my career as a painter by the grown-ups at the age of 6, and I had learned nothing to draw except closed boas and open boas. I looked at this apparition with eyes full of astonishment. Do not forget that I was 1,000 miles from any inhabited region. Now, my little fellow seemed to me neither astray, nor dead of fatigue, nor dead of hunger, nor dead of thirst, nor dead of fear. He had not the appearance of a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any inhabited region. When I finally succeeded in speaking, I said to him, "What are you doing here?" And he repeated to me very gently, as a very serious thing, "Please, draw me a sheep." When the mystery is too impressive, we do not dare to disobey. As absurd as it seemed to me, 1,000 miles from all inhabited places and in danger of death, I took out of my pocket a sheet of paper and a pen, but remembered that I had studied geography, history, calculation, and grammar, and I told the little fellow with a little bad humor that I did not know how to draw, and he replied, "It does not matter. Draw me a sheep." As I had never drawn a sheep, I thought of him as one of the only 2 drawings of which I was capable, that of the boa closed, and I was astounded to hear the little fellow reply, "No, no, I do not want an elephant in a boa. A boa is very dangerous, and an elephant is very cumbersome. My place is tight. I need a sheep. Draw me a sheep." I drew. Then he looked attentively. Then, "No, that one is already very ill. Do another one." I drew. He looked attentively. Then, "No, that one is already very ill. Do another one." I drew. My friendly smiled gently, indulgently. "You see, it's not a sheep, it's a ram. He has horns." So I still refused my drawing. But he was refused, like the preceding ones. "This one is too old. I want a long-lived sheep." Then, for lack of patience, I was anxious to begin the dismantling of my engine. I scribbled this drawing. Then I threw. "That's the box. The sheep you want, isn't it?" But I was much surprised to see the face of my young judge illuminated. "That's exactly how I wanted it. Do you think that sheep are to be found in this country? Why? Because at home it's very small. Surely that will suffice. I gave you a tiny sheep. Surely that will suffice. I gave you a tiny sheep." He leaned his head toward the drawing. "Not too small as that." He fell asleep. And so I made the acquaintance of the little prince.